The rain fell in a steady rhythmic drizzle against the windshield of the silver sedan as Marcus Thorne pulled over to the side of the road in the quiet suburb of Lakeside. It was a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day that usually fades into the background of a mundane week. Behind him, the flashing lights of a patrol car painted the mist in oscillating hues of red and blue. Officer David Sterling stepped out of his vehicle, his boots crunching on the wet gravel. This encounter, initiated over a minor registration discrepancy, was about to become the center of a national firestorm regarding police transparency. As Sterling approached the driver's side window, his body-worn camera was active, capturing the initial tense exchange. Marcus was confused, his hands visible on the steering wheel, asking why he had been stopped. The situation escalated rapidly when Marcus, fearing the officer's mounting aggression, attempted to flee on foot across a nearby lawn. A physical struggle ensued, a chaotic tangle of limbs and heavy breathing on the damp grass. Then, at the most critical juncture of the confrontation, just moments before a single, fatal shot was fired, the officer's body camera went dark. The screen transitioned from a high-definition record of a struggle to a void of blackness. This silence of the lens in the Thorne case serves as a harrowing template for understanding the legal and practical vulnerabilities that arise when the primary tool of modern accountability is deactivated during a use-of-force event. The sudden deactivation of a camera during a police encounter is rarely a simple matter of technical failure, and understanding the legal framework behind when a camera may or must be turned off is essential for any citizen navigating the justice system. Law enforcement agencies typically operate under a set of standard operating procedures that dictate the life cycle of a video recording. There are mandatory deactivation points designed to protect the privacy of the innocent or the vulnerable. For instance, officers are often required to stop recording when entering a private residence where no crime is suspected, or when interviewing victims of sexual assault or confidential informants who fear for their safety. Furthermore, in medical settings such as emergency rooms or psychiatric wards, HIPAA regulations and departmental policies often mandate that cameras be powered down to protect patient confidentiality. However, the controversy arises in the discretionary window. Many policies allow officers to stop recording if they believe the immediate tactical necessity has passed, or if they are discussing sensitive investigative strategies with other officers. In the case of Marcus Thorne, the defense argued the camera was bumped or dislodged during the scuffle, leading to an accidental power-off. This highlights the discretionary loophole, where the line between a procedural requirement and a tactical avoidance of oversight becomes blurred, leaving the public to wonder if the darkness was a choice or a coincidence. Once the camera is off and a tragedy has occurred, the battle for information moves from the street to the bureaucratic labyrinth of the local police department and the courts. Accessing body camera footage is not as simple as filing a standard request. It is often a protracted war of attrition. Most states allow law enforcement to withhold footage under the active investigation exemption of the Freedom of Information Act or its state-level equivalents. This means that while a case is being reviewed by a district attorney or an internal affairs division, the very evidence needed to verify the officer's account is shielded from public view. Even when footage is eventually released, it is frequently subjected to heavy redactions. Faces are blurred, audio is clipped, and critical seconds at the beginning or end of the clip might be missing. For the family of Marcus Thorne, it took months of legal maneuvering and public protests just to view the final moments of his life, only to find that the most crucial 5 seconds were never recorded. This delay creates a vacuum of information that is often filled by the official police narrative, which can become the truth in the minds of the public before the video ever sees the light of day. It underscores the reality that while body cameras are marketed as tools for the public, the control over the data they produce remains firmly in the hands of the agencies being monitored. In the absence of a functional police camera, the role of the bystander becomes the ultimate check on state power. In the Thorne incident, it was not the officer's equipment that provided the clearest picture of the shooting, but the cell phone of a neighbor who had been watching from a second-story window. Bystander video offers a perspective that body cameras cannot, the external view. While a body camera is often shaky, obscured by the officer's own arms, or limited by a narrow field of vision, a bystander's recording provides context, showing the positioning of both parties and the overall environment. These civilian dashcams have become the most significant advancement in civil rights litigation in the 21st century. They provide a continuous, unedited stream of data that cannot be remotely deactivated by a department server or lost due to a technical glitch on a utility belt. The presence of multiple angles from various witnesses can allow forensic experts to triangulate movements and sounds, creating a 3-dimensional reconstruction of an event that would otherwise be reduced to a he said, she said stalemate. Without that neighbor's quick thinking in Lakeside, the Thorne case might have been closed within a week as a justified use of force. Instead, it became a catalyst for systemic reform. To understand why these cameras fail, one must look at the limitations and controls of the technology itself. Most body cameras used by major departments are manufactured by a handful of companies, such as Axon or Motorola, and they are sophisticated but far from infallible. These devices rely on a buffering system. When a camera is in standby mode, it is constantly recording video but not audio, overwriting itself every 30 seconds. Only when the officer double taps the activation button does the device save that previous 30-second buffer and begin recording continuous audio and video. If an officer forgets to activate the camera until after a shot is fired, the most critical lead-up to the event may be silent or missing entirely. Furthermore, the physical hardware is susceptible to the rigors of a physical altercation. Battery life can be drained by cold weather or long shifts, and the mounting brackets, often simple magnets or clips, can be knocked loose, pointing the lens at the sky or the ground. There is also the signal technology, which is designed to automatically trigger cameras when a cruiser's light bar is activated or a holster is unclipped. However, these systems are not universal, and their failure rates, while low, are significant enough to provide a plausible excuse for missing footage in high-stress environments. If you find yourself in an encounter with law enforcement and you notice the officer's camera is not activated, there are specific, non-confrontational steps you should take to ensure a record exists. First, verbalize the situation. Calmly and clearly ask, "Officer, is your body camera currently recording?" This serves two purposes. It reminds the officer of their duty and places a timestamp on any other audio recording devices in the vicinity, such as a dash cam or a bystander's phone. If the officer claims the camera is broken or off, you can respectfully request that they activate it or call for a supervisor who has a functioning device. Throughout the encounter, use your voice as a secondary recording tool. Narrate what is happening without being obstructive. Statements like, "I am putting my hands on the steering wheel now," or "I am reaching for my identification in my right pocket," provide an audio trail that can be vital if the video evidence is later challenged or found to be incomplete. It is about creating a digital footprint of the interaction that exists independently of the officer's hardware, ensuring that your perspective is preserved through your own vocal documentation. As a bystander, your right to record the police is a bedrock principle of the First Amendment, but exercising that right requires a tactical understanding of the law to avoid being arrested for interference. The general rule established by federal appellate courts is that you have a right to film police officers performing their duties in public spaces, provided you do not interfere with their work. To protect yourself and the evidence you are gathering, maintain a safe distance. At least 10 to 15 feet is often cited as a reasonable buffer zone by legal experts. Do not attempt to get a close-up if an officer tells you to move back. Instead, use your phone's zoom feature. It is also critical to ensure your footage is being backed up to the cloud in real time. If an officer illegally seizes your phone or the device is damaged, the evidence is lost unless it has been uploaded to a service like iCloud, Google Drive, or a dedicated mobile justice app. Never give up your phone voluntarily. If an officer demands it, state clearly, "I do not consent to a search of my phone, but I will not physically resist you." This preserves your legal standing to challenge the seizure later in court, as the Fourth Amendment generally requires a warrant to search the contents of a mobile device, even if the person has been arrested. When the video is missing, the search for truth turns to alternative evidence, specifically logs and metadata. Every body camera is part of a larger digital ecosystem. When a camera is docked at the end of a shift, it uploads not just video, but a device log that records every button press, every power cycle, and every battery fluctuation with millisecond precision. If an officer claims a camera malfunctioned at 2:14 p.m., but the device log shows a manual power down command at 2:13 p.m., that discrepancy becomes a powerful tool for cross-examination. Beyond the camera itself, legal teams look to the computer-aided dispatch, CAD reports. These are the digital notes typed by dispatchers and officers throughout an incident. They contain timestamps for when the stop began, when backup was called, and when shots were fired. GPS metadata from the patrol car and the officer's portable radio can also reconstruct the movements of the parties involved. In the Thorn case, it was the metadata from the officer's radio showing a panic button press followed immediately by a manual radio transmission that helped investigators piece together the timeline of the struggle even when the video was absent. These silent witnesses of the digital age often tell a story that human memory cannot. The preservation of this evidence is a race against time and departmental retention policies. Most police departments have a purge schedule where unflagged video and logs are deleted after 30, 60, or 90 days to save server space. Therefore, the moment a legal dispute arises, a letter of preservation must be sent to the agency. This formal legal notice puts the department on notice that certain records, including body cam footage, metadata, dispatch logs, and emails, are relevant to a potential lawsuit. If the department destroys evidence after receiving such a notice, they may face spoliation sanctions. In many jurisdictions, if a court finds that the police intentionally destroyed or lost video evidence, the judge may issue an adverse inference instruction to the jury. This instruction tells the jury that they are permitted to assume the missing video would have been unfavorable to the officer's version of events. This is a devastating blow to a defense and serves as a powerful deterrent against the accidental loss of footage. In the Thorn litigation, the threat of spoliation sanctions was a primary driver in the department's eventual decision to settle the civil portion of the case, as the missing 5 seconds of video created a legal presumption of misconduct that they could not easily overcome. Finally, citizens should be aware of the growing body of legal protections and state-level presumptions that are being enacted to address the dark camera problem. Some states, like Colorado and Illinois, have passed landmark legislation that significantly alters the stakes for officers who fail to record. These laws often mandate that if an officer fails to turn on their camera during a use of force incident, there is a legal presumption that the officer acted in bad faith. This shifts the burden of proof. Instead of the victim having to prove the officer did something wrong, the officer must prove that the failure to record was truly accidental and that their actions were nonetheless justified. Furthermore, these statutes often remove qualified immunity, the legal doctrine that protects government officials from being sued for officers who intentionally violate body camera policies. This means that an officer could be held personally liable for damages if they purposely circumvent the transparency tools provided to them. These legislative shifts represent a new era of accountability, where the camera is no longer seen as an optional accessory, but as a mandatory component of a constitutional police encounter. As the case of Marcus Thorne demonstrated, when the camera goes off, the law must step in to fill the darkness with the light of accountability, ensuring that the absence of evidence is not treated as the evidence of absence. Through a combination of bystander vigilance, technical forensics, and aggressive legal advocacy, the public can ensure that even when a lens is covered, the truth remains in focus. The path forward for justice in the digital age requires a citizenry that is informed, proactive, and unwilling to accept silence as an answer. Every click of a power button and every frame of a buffered video is a thread in the fabric of the social contract, and it is only through the rigorous protection of these records that we can hope to prevent the next tragedy from disappearing into the shadows of a deactivated camera. The Thorne case was a tragedy of silence, but it has taught a nation how to speak up, how to record, and how to demand that the technology of oversight be used for its true purpose, the protection of the people and the pursuit of an undeniable truth. By understanding the mechanics of these systems and the legal rights that surround them, every individual becomes a guardian of the record, ensuring that no encounter is ever truly unobserved and no life is ever taken without a full and transparent accounting of the facts.